Hello everyone, this is part two of Professor Shima's resume advice. I'd like to begin by saying, first of all, sorry about the attire and the COVID-19 hair. I still have to get to someplace that can cut my hair, and there's nothing wrong with supporting Team Croatia. That's where my parents were born and raised, and while I am first and foremost an American, I also love where I come from, so I want to apologize for this. Okay, I left off with basically talking about your GPA and your overall and major GPAs and how you put that on your resume. I want to backtrack just a little bit. A lot of my international students give me copies of their resume and they have information on their resume that has nothing to do with the job itself. It has nothing to do with the job qualifications. For example, a lot of my international students will give me a resume with a picture of themselves on it, or their birth date, or their marital status, if they own their own transportation, if they own a home, all personal information that in America would be inappropriate and unprofessional because those things have nothing to do with you doing the job well. We live in a very litigious society. Around half of all the world's lawyers are American, even though we're only 4% of the global population. Around 2.4% of America's entire economy is tort costs, and that's basically lawsuits. So don't put stuff on your resume that has nothing to do with you doing the job well. So birth date, how old you are, picture of yourself, socioeconomic data, that sort of thing, can't be on your resume. Most good employers and HR types will hand the resume back to you if they see that sort of information on there. Okay, the other thing I wanted to throw out there as well was most of you are supply chain or ISM majors and students. You take the same classes, you have the same hard skills, you have a lot of the same soft skills, most of which you can't sell very well on your resumes, even though you have them. My point is, the employers tell me all of your resumes look alike. There's nothing wrong with that because you're majoring in something that they want. You have skill sets that they want, but they want to see something that differentiates you, and sometimes it's a matter of doing it aesthetically, just the appearance of your resume. So I just want to throw that out there. I've gotten a few complaints from some companies and some managers that have said, man, if they could just be a little more creative and give me something that looks a little different. And they don't hold it against you that the content themselves of the resumes are very similar, and it's for all the right reasons. You get great work experience, you do projects with local companies, you have all these hard skills, you're trying to sell your soft skills. That's great, but try to make it look a little different and stay conservative at the same time. Okay, back to the education section of your resume. Basically, I left off with GPAs, and my thought there is most companies out there really have a cutoff of a 2.7 GPA. And a lot of companies out there won't even advertise what their minimum cutoff is because they entertain options. For example, if they have a cutoff of a 2.7, but you got a 2.65, but you have everything that they're looking for otherwise, and you have a good explanation as to why you have a 2.65 GPA, they might consider you. So what I've told students is, if you're under a 2.7 GPA, yes, I would leave that off there and have a good story to tell as to why you have a GPA that's under a 2.7. If someone is actually advertising for a 3.0 or above, which is typical of our Fortune 500 elitist types of companies, then I would say if you're under a 3.0, maybe you don't waste too much of your time or their time by trying to get a job with them if you don't meet their minimum requirement. For liability reasons, they might not be able to give you the time of day, so why waste everyone's time? So now we're back to, okay, what do you put on your resume? I say if you're a 3.0 or above, or a 2.7 or above overall, put your overall GPA on there. Your major GPA, again, you take about 13 classes in the ISM major. That's twice the content of most other undergraduate supply chain programs, so that in itself is impressive. But I don't think you can legitimately calculate a major GPA until you've taken about 4 to 6 classes in the curriculum. And once you've done that, if your major is much higher than your overall, and your overall is under a 3.0, then I would put that on there. I would send the message that, got off to a rocky start in college, discovered the ISM program, love my major, love the content, I'm excelling in it. I have a 3.5 GPA in my major coursework. I'm halfway through the curriculum, even though my overall is a 2.85. But because I love my major coursework and I have another 6 classes to go and I'll probably get a 3.5 or above in those remaining 6 classes, I anticipate graduating with above a 3.0 overall. So I think you need to send those messages, and if you have a positive trend line, sell it. Okay, other parts of the education section. What you could do to sell the curriculum and the content and the breadth and depth of the ISM curriculum is actually list the titles of the classes that you take in the ISM curriculum. So in one column you could say classes already taken, then in another column classes to be taken, or you could just throw them all on there, and employers will understand that if you're a junior you might have half of these classes left to take. You're not trying to fool them into thinking, oh, I've taken these classes so hire me for this internship. Or you could have, again, a column that says I've taken these and I still have to take these classes. I would list any classes on there that sell your brand. And when you look at the titles of the classes, some of them, the titles, they're not that good. You can call the classes whatever you want. For example, I teach a problem solving course. You can call it Lean Six Sigma problem solving, whatever you think the buzzwords are out there that managers will gravitate towards. Feel free to title the classes as you see fit based on the things you've learned and the things that will resonate with the employers that will look at your resume. I think you take so many classes that are unique to the ISM program, and then you take these engineering classes and you take these CIS classes, especially if you're a business analytics minor, and those titles sell skill sets that a lot of managers might assume that you don't have because they typically maybe recruit from, say, Michigan State or U of M, and they take half as many classes as you do, and they don't take any engineering classes whatsoever, and their data analytics skills aren't as strong as yours. I think you shortchange yourself by not selling the curriculum to potential employers on your resume. Okay, I think that's kind of a wrap on the education section. And again, the sample resume I've created for you that I'm working from right now, I can send to you if you don't have a copy of, and you can work from that. The problem with that is so many students just use it as a template that, once again, I get employers saying, yep, they all look the same and they look like Shima's resume, sample resume from his class. Don't do that. You only hurt yourself in the program by not coming up with something that's your own creative work. Okay, I'm going to move down this list here. All right, work experience. I think you have 2 types of work experience. One is real work experience. You worked, you got paid, you made money, and you paid the bills. The other type of work experience would be professional experience. This would be experience where maybe you didn't get paid, maybe it wasn't full-time, but it was related to what you're majoring in. In other words, maybe an experiential project or experience through the curriculum. For those of you that take my problem-solving class, you do a project with a local company, or this summer it's a remote project with Lear Corporation. I think that would be a great place for a professional experience section. So you have the education section, then maybe a professional experience section that taps into coursework and projects that you did with companies and managers in industry. A lot of you take Dr. Wagner's Management 4640 and Management 3200 class, where you learn ERP and SAP. SAP is the ERP system that most of the companies that recruit from the ISM program use. Why wouldn't you have that someplace on your resume? Dr. Wagner does that scrimmage sim exercise with you. That's a training tool that simulates what people in the real world use and do. Why wouldn't you have that on your resume someplace? So all of those things potentially could be in a professional experience section on your resume. All right, actual work experience. The biggest and most important part of your resume will be a corporate work experience where you worked full-time, 40, 50 hours a week, potentially during the summertime or during the school year, part-time as a co-op position. Excuse me. Now, when I say this is the biggest and most important part of your resume, this is the part that will get you the full-time job. This is the part that will get your foot in the door for an interview, for an internship. So what I like to see is I like to see the work experience section, if you have work experience related to what you're majoring in, to be the biggest and most important part of your resume. I think the most important part of this is make sure that it's just not a list of job responsibilities and descriptions that you would typically see in a job posting. They want to see deliverables and results, and they want to see that you're job ready day one, or that you get things done, results driven. They want to see percentages, dollar signs, hard data, not proprietary confidential information. You might not be able to list the actual cost savings in dollar amounts, but what's wrong with the percentage reduction? You might be able to list a cost savings in dollar amounts, but you might not be able to say with what supplier it was with, or what you paid per part, what you agreed to pay per part after the negotiation process. So there's a way to put hard data on your resume without giving up anything that's confidential or proprietary. And I encourage you to work with your professional industry managers and mentors in determining what's confidential and what's not. And if they care about you, they'll coach you and guide you in a way where you can sell it for all it's worth, in a way that's not inappropriate, non-professional. In fact, if you put something down that's inappropriate, other managers that are looking at your resume, determining if they want to interview you or not, will call you out and say, that's inappropriate. I don't want to even interview you because you should have known better than to tell me what you were paying per part from supplier A, and then what you ended up paying per part, because that's really none of my business as I look at this and decide to interview you or not. Okay? So that's kind of the professional experience and work experience section. Also, I feel like anything you've done while you've been in college should be on your resume. And I don't care if it's 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, 30 hours a week, 60 hours a week. I don't care if it's in the food service industry. I don't care if you're a waiter, a server, a bartender, if you were a manual laborer, if you dug ditches, if you mowed lawns. Anything that accounts for your time while you're in college, you should sell it for all it's worth. Students that go to Western and major ISM, what I've noticed is they subsidize a big chunk of their own college education. And that brings me to another point, is in the education section, why wouldn't you put an asterisk that said subsidized 100% of my own college expenses? Why wouldn't you want to tell an employer that you paid for 50%, 75%, 100% of your own college expenses? Maybe that explains why your GPA is a 3.1 or a 2.9. Maybe that explains why it took you more than 5 years to graduate, if they picked up on that. So I think if you're someone that's putting themselves through college, or if you're someone where mom and dad cannot or don't want to pay for the majority of your own college expenses and you have to pay the bills, why not sell that? Those are kind of the soft skills that employers really eat up. That implies that you have a strong work ethic, that you're responsible, that you're mature, that you know how to manage your time, those sorts of things. So I would put on there, during the school year, if you have a part-time job, I've noticed that students don't talk about how many hours a week they work. They'll come into my office and say they're a server at a restaurant. Then I ask, how many hours a week do you work while you have a full-time schedule? And they say, I work about 20 to 40 hours a week. It varies, on average around 30. And then I ask them, why wouldn't you tell them that you work 30 hours a week, have a full-time course load, and your overall GPA is a 3.4? Isn't that what they're looking for when they're trying to hire someone? Someone that can work hard and manage their time well and get the job done. So again, I think Western students in general shortchange themselves. They don't sell a lot of the soft skills that they have on their resume. And I just mentioned a few examples there. You're working hard, you're paying the bills, let them know about it and sell it. Along the same lines, when you talk about your professional experiences, those class projects, the projects we do with industry, those things you do in the classroom with Dr. Wagner, like ERP and scrimmage sim, and those internships you get, and those part-time jobs that help you pay the bills while you're in college, all that stuff I think should just reek of results, deliverables. I get the job done, and I've developed a lot of the soft skills that employers tend to eat up, like problem-solving skills, leadership skills, the ability to work in teams, get along with others, handle conflict well, conflict resolution, things like that. Okay, what else? Professional experience, work experience. Oh, if you transferred to Western from a junior college, do you want that someplace on your resume? I think if you graduated with an associate's degree, then you should have that in the education section. I think you should have everything on your resume and keep it on one page. You just don't have to spend a lot of time and space doing it. So if you want to say you graduated from KVCC with an associate's degree in something, you could do that, but you could do that in one line and you don't have to go into great detail about that. Likewise, when my students start to get corporate work experiences, in other words, co-ops and internships, yeah, I say make that the biggest and most important part of your resume so that it takes up like that much space. But that doesn't mean get rid of something that you did for 2 years, your freshman and sophomore year, that helped you pay the bills, like you were a server at a restaurant. Just maybe dedicate one line to the job where you were a server, and then have 7 lines dedicated to the internship that you had at Stryker during the summer with the local Fortune 500 company. So I also think if you transferred into Western, you're also sending the message that I took my 1000 and 2000 level classes at a junior college because one, the quality of education is outstanding, and two, it was 80% cheaper. Don't you want to tell employers that are hiring for supply chain management jobs that you're that savvy to understand that you can get the same quality of education, if not better, at a junior college at the 1000 and 2000 level, and then you can do it at what, 80% of the cost. So at Western, you might pay $1,500 for a class, and at KVCC, it might be $300 or so. So I would send that message as well. I think they eat it up. Okay, what else? Maybe a skills section. You could have a hard skills section, a soft skills section. I personally don't like a soft skills section. I don't like it when you basically self-declare that you have problem-solving skills. I don't like it when you self-declare that you have leadership skills. Those are buzzwords, and I think you need to sell those soft skills through all of the stuff that's on your resume, in particular your professional and work experiences. Now, I do believe in selling your hard skills, things that we teach you, that we've trained you on, that you can actually do because of that training. So if you look at all the classes that you've taken, you walk away with a long list of hard skills. And again, a lot of the companies that recruit from our program might not understand that you have to take 13 classes to graduate from the ISIM program. And when they're recruiting from other schools, those students are taking 5, 6, 7 classes. So you take twice as much coursework. Furthermore, that would imply that your laundry list of hard skills should be twice as long, and in general it is. So I've listed some here. Proficient in electronics and reading blueprints, drafting, CAD, SMED, ISO 14000, QS 9000, TS 16949, SAP/ERP configuration systems, Six Sigma lean manufacturing, A3 problem solving, Microsoft Excel data analytics, GIS technology mapping, Tableau, Power BI. Take a look at all the classes you've taken. What skill sets have you walked away from that employers don't have to train you on if they hire you? Okay, kind of wrapping it up. The activities section, I encourage students to join organizations that are related to what they're majoring in. Now keep in mind, if you put things down on your resume where you say I'm a part of this club, they're going to try to gauge, did you just put that on your resume and basically fill out an application and pay the membership fee, or did you get something out of it? And were you an engaged member of it? So I think in the ISIM program, we're no longer a student chapter of APICS. We've walked away from APICS. Furthermore, APICS has changed its name. They are no longer called APICS. They are the Association of Supply Chain Management. Okay, so basically, alumni that look at your resume are going to make sure that you're in the student ISM club, which is now the Association of Supply Chain Management or something like that. So I'm still trying to catch up on what we're calling it, but we're no longer a part of APICS, the student chapter of that. So that's a big one. The Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals is another one, and the Institute for Supply Management is another big one. So I would say the Association of Supply Chain Management, formerly known as APICS, is huge. It's a huge national club that supply chain management professionals join and belong to. The Institute of Supply Management is another big club that represents supply chain management professionals, and the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals is probably the third one out there. You want to send the message to employers that I know what these clubs are, I know what these organizations are, and if you hire me full-time, I'm going to join these, I'm going to be a part of them, and I'm going to be an engaged member of them. What a better message to send than to say, I'm going to do this, and I've done it as a student to prove it. So the Institute of Supply Management, which is leaning towards purchasing, sourcing, procurement, buyer types. They have local chapter meetings in Grand Rapids on a monthly basis. The Association of Supply Chain Management, formerly known as APICS, has local chapter meetings monthly during the school year right next door to HCOB at Fetzer Center. So you could go there for free every month, listen to a guest speaker, sit at a table with a bunch of local managers that, guess what, might ask you for your resume when they see a student at the table. At each of those monthly meetings, they probably see 2 or 3 students tops from our program. That number should be 20 to 30. But I get it. You're busy. You got things going on. You can't do it all, but sometimes you have to do it all. Then you have the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, which basically is geared at one time towards logistics types. All of these organizations are trying to pull people in, so they're trying to be less focused on a part of supply chain management and focus on a broader sense of it. So ISM went from being focused on purchasing, now they want everyone in the supply chain management community to join them. Likewise, Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, not just logistics. APICS used to be kind of focused towards operations, factory production types, and now they want to likewise attract everyone beyond just the manufacturing environment. But those are the three major organizations. All of them have certifications associated with their clubs. And again, you want to send the message that once I graduate, I won't stop learning, I won't stop networking, I will be engaged. All of these organizations allow you to externally validate your expertise in supply chain management. For example, APICS has CPIM certification. That one you could actually start on while you're in college or begin shortly thereafter. And the data shows people that graduate, go into supply chain management, that are engaged members of these organizations related to your field, and go on to pursue certifications related to these things, they just do better professionally. And at the same time, the thing that delivers the biggest bang for the buck would be getting a graduate degree in something. And the problem with that is, while it delivers the biggest bang for the buck, it's also the most work. A graduate degree, a master's of something, would typically be about 12 classes. If you did that part-time while you worked full-time and your employer paid for your graduate education, which is often the case, if you have to take 12 classes and work 50 hours a week, how much time do you have after work to take classes? You might have enough time to do 1 or 2 classes a semester, and then you take the summers off. Big surprise, this could be a 3 or 4 year journey to plug away at. But the cool thing is, the data shows that you have more job security, you do better professionally, and if you do it part-time while you work full-time, it might not cost you a dime. Students ask me, well, what should I get a graduate degree in? That's a tough question. I would say get a graduate degree in something that you're really, really, really bad at, that you need to be really, really good at. How's that for an answer? So in other words, don't do this. If you get a BBA from Western at HCOB, maybe don't get an MBA from Western in HCOB. The Masters of Business Administration degree, the MBA, traditionally was created by Harvard to basically educate people in business that didn't have an undergraduate business degree. So in industry, a lot of managers didn't have business degrees because most schools didn't have business degrees that you could major in at the undergraduate level. A lot of the people that were running industry, first of all, didn't have a college degree, and if they did, it tended to be technical in nature. So in American industry, for the better part of the 1900s, you had a bunch of people with engineering degrees that were business managers. So Harvard came along and said, we're going to create an MBA for people like you. So to get a BBA and then an MBA, I'm like, how much more are you going to learn? In fact, if you got a BBA from Western and then got an MBA from Western, I'll tell you for a fact, you'll have a lot of the same professors and they'll teach a lot of the same material. And employers will see that and notice that. If you're working locally and you're looking for a little job security, there's nothing wrong with getting an MBA from Western. It's accredited, it's quality education, it's local, it's convenient, it's competitively priced. So if you're looking for job security, fantastic. If you're looking to jump up the corporate ladder or go to a higher bidder once you get your graduate degree, man, I say go for brand, image, and reputation. That's very important. I've always said at the undergraduate level, where you get your degree doesn't matter as much as what you get your degree in. So at the undergraduate level, I say focus on get your degree in something that's important to people, where demand exceeds supply. And then when you're doing it, just make a bunch of great decisions. So the reputation, image, and brand of where you go to school at the undergraduate level is way, way less important than the major that you actually pick and how hard you work and the decisions that you make. Now, at the graduate level, I would say that's a little different. My impression is that the brand, reputation, image of your graduate degree, where you got the degree from, has an impact. So obviously, the more expensive top 10, top 20, top 30 programs, I think would serve you better. But the problem with that too is they're more expensive. They're harder to get into. Typically, they require previous full-time work experience, so you're not getting into those programs until maybe your mid to late 20s and maybe sometimes your early 30s. So these are all things you got to think about. You got to take those tests to get into them, and those better schools require better test scores like the GMAT and the GRE, so those things take a lead time that you have to prepare for. But so that's my take a little bit on graduate school. Data shows it's worth it. It's just a lot of work, but anything worthwhile is. On your resume, you could also say, here are some of my certification and career goals, like these different certifications associated with those different supply chain clubs that I told you about. Maybe you want to tell them, hey, I do plan on getting my graduate degree. Now, back to what should you get your graduate degree in? Like I said, whatever you want. If you get a BBA in supply chain management, what's wrong with getting an MBA in supply chain management at Michigan State University, which is ranked #1 in the world? Okay, yeah, literally. If you get a concentration in supply chain management in their MBA program, that program is ranked #1 in the world. U of M Ann Arbor, which is ranked top 5, you could get a Ross MBA part-time. I haven't heard many people say, boy, I really regret getting an MBA from Ross at U of M in Ann Arbor. It's a top 5 program. It has a lot of cachet associated with it. And if you didn't have to pay for it or for the majority of the costs of it, I've never heard of someone complaining about, yeah, I wish I didn't get my graduate degree at that top 10, top 5, #1 ranked program. But at the same time, if you're not learning a lot of new stuff, that's going to impact you professionally at some point, because you're not going to have the skill sets you need in the areas that you were weak in before going to graduate school. So what I've noticed is a lot of my students are really weak in finance. And how do you climb up the corporate ladder and get to a director, executive director, or VP position without a strong finance background? The finance stuff is crucial at some point, and if you don't have the finance skill sets, I think you hit a ceiling professionally. So I think if you could build that part of your skill set up, and you'll have the supply chain side taken care of through your BBA and your work experiences, that would serve you very well. Maybe you want to develop some of your technical skill sets because you're working in automotive and you're surrounded by engineers. Maybe you want to get a master's of science in engineering management or something like that. So again, I would just focus on who you work for, the industry, what skill sets you need for that industry, what you're weak at, and try to go to graduate school for something that develops those skill sets that you need more work in versus the skill sets that you're already kind of strong in. Okay, what else? Certification, career goals. I think that's kind of a wrap, and that's it. I just wanted to throw this out there as well. Most of my students get internships and work experiences in purchasing or procurement or sourcing. And then they get jobs full-time after graduation in purchasing and procurement and sourcing. And that's fantastic because it's fun, it's exciting, there are advancement opportunities, it pays well. There's nothing wrong with me having a bunch of students in their 30s making over $100K a year, $20,000 to $30,000 a year in bonuses, managing $500 million in spend or $1 billion in spend. But I will say this, you're majoring in 3 distinct yet interrelated functional areas, those being purchasing, operations, and logistics management. If you're in your 30s and you haven't worked outside of purchasing, you're going to hit a ceiling professionally. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a director in supply chain management or a commodity manager, because those jobs pay very, very well. But you're going to have a hard time moving past that level of management if all you've done is buy stuff for a company. Okay, and I'm starting to see a lot of my students that have graduated from the program hit a ceiling professionally because they've done nothing other than buy stuff. So anytime you can get those cross-functional work experiences, especially earlier on in your career, I would recommend that. I mean, if you work for a company that builds stuff, shouldn't you get some work experience in a factory where they actually build stuff? Yeah, supply chain management accounts for a lot of the company's total spend. You know, they buy the stuff that the company needs to make stuff, but it's actually manufacturing that consumes most of a company's resources. So if you want to get to an executive director or a VP level or become a CEO or have a job in the C-suites, good luck with that if you haven't worked in the part of your company that consumes the greatest number of resources. A lot of American companies actually put people in executive level positions that had no manufacturing background, and they worked for manufacturing companies. And a lot of people attribute some of America's downfall in the 70s and 80s to the fact that you had a bunch of people running manufacturing companies that didn't know a single thing about manufacturing. So again, cross-functional work experience, the sooner the better. And the cool thing is a lot of the job offers that you will get will be job rotations where they'll say, hey, for 3 years, you're going to work someplace different every 6 months. Or for 2 years, you're going to work someplace different every 6 months. Or for 3 years, we're going to give you 3 different job assignments in 3 different areas. And a lot of the time what they'll do is they'll give you a laundry list of places that you can choose from. Choose stuff that you think you're weak at that you need to get better at that maybe you don't want to work in down the road. So let's say you don't want to work in a factory, you don't want to do it down the road, you don't want to do it in your 30s, but you admit that you want to work for manufacturing companies long term, you want to work for companies that build stuff. Why not pick one of your job rotation assignments in operations as a supervisor where you get to develop your leadership skills working with hourly workers and maybe a union that employers would eat up because that really develops your leadership skills, and get it out of the way. If you get a operations assignment in your 30s, you could be stuck there a few years and people at corporate headquarters might forget about you. If you get that in the job rotation at age 22, 23, it might be a 6-month job assignment or 1 year, and there's something on paper that says this is the exit strategy. After this is over, this is where you're going next, and it's on paper, and there's a commitment to that. So I would say those job rotations are awesome, especially if you can pick where you work. I would pick the stuff that maybe you don't want to do later on in your career, but you know that you need that work experience if you want to be successful long term. Okay, as always, I've babbled a lot. Hopefully that was useful to you. I wish I could do this face to face, sometimes one-on-one in a group setting. That way I could field questions and we could bounce ideas off of each other. This is just different, not my favorite format, but hopefully it gets the job done. Okay, I will talk to you soon. Bye.